Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Believer, a South Korean crime thriller from 2018 that is a remake of the Chinese-Hong Kong co-production Drug War. So does this film live up to the awesomeness of the original? Take a wild guess. In the original film, Louis Koo's character survives an explosion at his drug factory, gets arrested in the hospital, and offers up some big-time drug dealers to our protagonist cop character to get a lesser sentence. That's a simple and efficient premise to build off of. Now listen to what we get during the opening 15 minutes of Believer. No spoilers, of course. The opening scene is a discussion between our main character, a cop, and a druggy girl who he uses as an informant in an effort to take down a big-time drug lord by the name of Mr. Lee, who he's been after for years. Then we get a background news bulletin that's talking about a businessman who died under suspicious circumstances. Then we go back to the girl who gets roughed up by some bad guys but leaves a clue for the cop. Then an attractive woman shows up. She survives a murder attempt in the form of an exploding building and goes to the cops. And as it turns out, she's Mr. Lee's broker, and she decides to help our protagonist nail the guy. Now she tells him that similar explosions were used in the past by Mr. Lee to help her move up the criminal ladder, and that the aforementioned businessman was also killed by Mr. Lee as well, because apparently Mr. Lee's syndicate is entering the Chinese market, and he's tying up some loose ends before venturing into that market. Now all of this story, and we haven't even gotten to our second lead character yet, a young man who survived the explosion as well at the drug factory and also agrees to help the cops in their investigation of Mr. Lee. That's the main story of the film, by the way. I felt like I needed a pen and paper to keep track of all of this over-plotting during the opening 15 minutes. I mean, I don't understand the need to overcomplicate and over-dramatize everything right from the start of the film. Even the main cop in the film. In the original film, he gets this lead and he follows it to take this criminal down. In this film, he's been after the guy for years. It's got to be all dramatic. You know what I mean? Saying it's just like, I don't know, man. It doesn't work. And there's one thing. It's not a problem to complicate a storyline or make it more complex in its own right. You know what I'm saying? But it's a problem when most of the added material has no impact on the rest of the movie. You know what I mean? Almost nothing that happens in the opening 15 minutes of this movie really has any impact on anything that happens later on. So it's just, I was reminded actually of Along the Wolf Brigade while watching this. Because this film has an obsession with adding dead weight and pointless characters to the original story. It's especially true during, like I said, the opening segments. Sometimes I wonder if filmmakers have a specific reason for bloating runtimes out to 2 full hours. Because it happens a lot, regardless of whether or not the story justifies it. Drug War had a runtime of 1 hour and 47 minutes, and it justifies every single minute of that, because it's difficult for me to identify any scenes that should have been cut out. On the other hand, Believer is 2 hours and 3 minutes long, but it does not justify the runtime because I can think of probably 10 minutes of content that could have been cut out of the opening 15 minutes alone. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes, I imagine these filmmakers during the editing phase of Believer, and this is what they're probably saying. They get to the cut and they're like, crap, our current runtime is 1 hour and 58 minutes long. Well, we don't have 2 more minutes of credits to add on, so you know what? Why don't we add back that 5-minute scene at the beginning of the movie with a useless side character that has no impact on the rest of the film. That way, we can crack the 2-hour mark, because a runtime of 2 hours and 3 minutes looks so much better than a runtime of 1 hour and 58 minutes. Now, if somebody actually told me, if somebody came out in the industry and said that that's what happened, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't, and I don't understand it. There's a lot of movies out there, even some of the good ones, that simply feel too long. You know what I mean? This is not just a problem in Korean cinema, because almost every film industry does it. Movies are a form of entertainment, and should not be used as an excuse to put your audience through an endurance test. You know what I'm saying? Can somebody inform Peter Jackson of this, please? But in any case, even if we ignore that aspect of the film, Believer is also lacking in a sense of urgency. You know, the characters in Drug War were always moving. There was a persistent effort to progress in the investigation, which kept the viewer engaged and also contributed a bunch of suspenseful sequences. In Believer, there's less urgency because the scriptwriters spend much of their efforts on overplotting and building drama that ultimately does not add much to the film. You know, what it does add is a bunch of mediocre dialogue that slows the film down. Now, in all fairness, Believer does have some good qualities to it. You know, production values are very good. Some of the music is solid. And the shootouts are decently entertaining. The two-part sting operation of the original is preserved and executed fairly well here. But just when the film begins to find its rhythm, especially after that two-part sting operation, it just seems to stall again with uneven pacing. I did not like how they adapted the script in this case. Another downgrade in Believer is the lady cop. You know, in Drug War, Hwang Yi was fun to watch and made a lot of legitimate contributions to the investigation. Her equivalent character in Believer just kind of walks around and spouts a few lines of dialogue in the background. She's completely forgettable in this. Acting in general ranges from very good to pretty good. You know, there's really not any bad performances. Jin-woong Cho is a highlight in the lead role. I did like him quite a bit. Ju-hyuk Kim and Seo-yeon Jin are delightfully energetic in their roles as the drug suppliers, but you know, a few of their scenes just dragged out for too long. You know, and it lessens the impact of their over-the-top performances. It became a bit too cartoonish after a while. If they edited that scene down a bit, it would have been more impactful, I think. And last, but certainly not least, Drug War built up to a crescendo. You know, the big finale in that film is just exciting and totally satisfying. Believer, on the other hand, throws in a dumb plot twist, which I will not reveal. But it's not just the dumb plot twist that hurts the film, it's the finale that follows it. You know what I mean? When it ended, when Believer ended, and I saw the final shot of the film and it went to black, and the credits started rolling, I just kind of threw my hands in the air and said, that's it? Really? Like, that's how you're going to end this movie? It was a pretty bad ending to the film. It was. It definitely leaves the film on a sour note at the very end. And again, no sense of urgency or suspense at all. I don't know who thought of this ending, man. It was not good. So, overall, I did not like this movie very much. It's got some positive qualities, you know, kind of like Along the Wolf Brigade had some positive qualities, but from now on, I'm watching Drug War, and I'll be skipping this. So, Believer is available on Amazon streaming in the US if you want to check it out, but I do not recommend it. As always, I'll see you next time.